Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's live IELTS class. My name is Adrian, and I'm streaming to you from beautiful Central Europe. I hope everybody is having a good day. Hi, Muhammad Abadav. Hi, Uchkun Spark. Hi, Harsh Kumar. Surya Esh, nice to see Rahul Kumar and many others in the class. This lesson is presented to you by aehelp.com for academic IELTS success. Definitely check us out there. For the general IELTS, visit us at gieltshelp.com. On both of our websites, we have lots of materials to help you, and right now we have the best discount of the year going on, Cyber Day. We'll give you a 40% discount. So this code, Cyber Day, CYBERDAY, on our websites, we'll give you that 40% discount. That's for this week only. These are our websites here. This is the academic with the blue background. Click that big red button to join our premium package. Hi, Ois. Hi, Shaylee. Nice to see our members joining in. This is our general IELTS website here with the green background. Click that big red button there, and you can use the code CYBERDAY to get that 40% off. We're going to practice our listening here using our academic website today. If anybody has questions, you can always contact me by email. Send me your emails to adrian@aehelp.com. Welcome, Bikash, to our group of members. Nice of you to join. Send me an email so I can hook you up with your videos and your exams, your practice exams. That's fantastic. Happy to have you on board. All right, students, so more classes today, tomorrow, and the day after. So right now, listening, and then tomorrow we'll have task 1 and reading, and we'll have some speaking classes for you on Saturday. But right now, let's get into our listening practice. As we start our listening, please remember, write your answers in a separate document, not in the chat, so this gives everybody a chance to answer. It's terrible when people are writing answers in the chat while you're listening and it's the wrong answer, and then the other students are confused and they're going, what's going on? So just save it until the end. We will go through the answers together at the end of the listening. Okay? All right. Yesterday we did part 1 and part 2. Does anybody remember the topic of part 3 and part 4, if I hide that? Anybody remember the topic of part 3 and part 4? Yesterday we took a peek at those. I told you about this strategy that during the instruction time you can look at the topics of all of the sections. So anybody remember what those are? Drum roll, please. Section 3, the topic was trade between nations. So something about trade between nations. And Carolina, that's right. It was Michelangelo for part 4. Very good. So I am going to play the audio for you. Volume is maximum on my end. So if it's quiet, then turn up your volume on your device, and definitely use a headset, especially if you're using a mobile phone. Use a headset. Okay, this is exam 5, track 3, CD 5. So let me just get into our website here for the audio materials. Of course, if you're using our website, then the audio is very high quality, but I'm playing this audio through my mic. So it's still good, but definitely if you have the website, that's the way to go. So this is CD 5, track 3. Okay, listen, answer. Don't put the answers in the chat. Write them down separately, and then we'll go through them together at the end. I know it's bright, but don't worry. That'll go away in a second here. All right, everyone. Here we go.
Turn to section 3. Take some time to look at questions 21 to 26. Listening, Section 3. You will hear a forum discussion between the moderator and two contributors, Dr. Rachel Young and Dr. Ronald Sturgeon, both political scientists at the local university, talking about trade between countries. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 26.
First of all, I'd like to thank Dr. Young and Dr. Sturgeon for taking the time to spend this afternoon with us.
Thank you for having us here today.
Dr. Young, could you give us a little background on the topic of free trade and protectionism, a little history?
Well, countries and nation-states have been participating in free trade schemes for millennia. The ancient Egyptians, for example, participated in trade with the Arabians across the Red Sea over 3,000 years ago. The Roman Empire imported many goods from outside their lands, especially luxury goods such as silk, which were only available in China. Free trade, however, though, has much younger roots.
Could you define free trade and protectionism for us, Dr. Sturgeon?
Free trade is trade between countries without taxes, tariffs, or other regulations attached. Without a free trade agreement, nations charge taxes or tariffs on goods that are imported to their country. This is to protect the manufacturers within their country. If country A, for example, produces a product for a 20% higher cost than country B, country A is likely to impose a tariff on the importation of country B's cheaper product into country A. This is to level the playing field for domestic manufacturers. Free trade advocates want to take down this barrier. In my opinion, advocates of free trade do not care about domestic manufacturers and workers in their own country. I believe their only intention is to maximize profit for big international businesses.
I know Dr. Sturgeon is impassioned about protectionism, but what he fails to mention is that while free trade may lead to some lost jobs in certain sectors, it leads to many other jobs in other sectors. This may be cold comfort to those in, say, manufacturing or textiles, but we must not be blind to the needs of the many and be distracted by the needs of the few. Nobody says free trade between countries is perfect, but it is certainly better than a protectionist framework which costs the country jobs and prosperity. Another point I would like to make is that free trade increases competition and thus lowers the price of many goods. This saves consumers money. Purchasing a car, for example, is much cheaper under free trade agreements. While such agreements may appear undesirable for a British company such as Land Rover, since they are given price disadvantage within the United Kingdom, this is not the whole story. While it is true that the company is at a minor disadvantage within their home country, free trade agreements puts them in an equally advantageous position in other countries in which the UK has a free trade agreement.
You now have some time to look at questions 27 to 30. Now listen to the rest of the discussion and answer questions 27 to 30.
This is a very interesting discussion. Dr. Sturgeon, from reading some of your work, I know you have some ethical concerns about free trade.
Yes, I have a number of ethical concerns. First and foremost, free trade agreements incentivize highly unethical sweatshops. When countries such as the United Kingdom enter free trade agreements with countries with lower human rights standards, we put ourselves at risk of tacitly endorsing those low human rights standards. Is the ability to wear slightly cheaper clothing really worth selling out on one of our most basic beliefs, that people should be treated with respect?
I agree with Dr. Sturgeon that human rights is an ongoing issue in free trade. Certain incidents, such as sweatshops collapsing and killing dozens of workers, have highlighted this issue in the media and public discourse, but these are isolated incidents.
Hardly. These are not isolated at all. And even if such horrible incidents were rare, Does it make the conditions those workers work in permissible? Do we excuse horrible working conditions as long as the workers don't die? That's an incredibly low bar, and one I believe we must implore companies and governments to raise.
Okay, let's move on. Dr. Young, do you believe free trade betters the life of the average British citizen?
Absolutely. I believe free trade agreements make us more prosperous as a society. While not perfect, I truly believe pursuing free trade agreements is a positive step in making our world a better place.
Of course, I disagree. While I do not doubt that more wealth comes into our country as a result of free trade agreements, I believe this money never improves the life of the average citizen. The rich get richer and the middle class workers get laid off. Not to mention the ethical issues I have with this.
That is the end of section 3. You will now have half a minute to check your answers.
And check those answers, students. Make sure you haven't made any silly mistakes. Look at the questions. Look at your answers, especially for multiple choice. Logic will often help you for multiple choice. Okay, I'm just going to stop our audio, and then we will go through the questions together. Now, I tried to make it as big as possible here for the text. I saw some of you were having difficulty reading it. It also depends on your internet connection. This is a low latency live stream, so you do need some good internet to be able to see it clearly. Okay, if you're using data on mobile, that might be a little bit tricky. Okay, so here we go, everyone. Let's do this together. So here they're talking about trade. And hopefully most of you got that the topic here that they're talking about was free trade versus protectionism. Okay. Now, when you're doing the listening section at home, it's really important to practice just understanding what they're talking about. Okay, you can't just do a good job or get a high score by simply listening for keywords. Okay, so trying to listen for keywords is not good enough to get a high score. You do have to understand what the discussion is about. So before we get into our answers, in a very simple definition, what is free trade? So what does it mean, free trade? How can you define that? Okay, so hopefully most of you understood that here there are two professors debating, arguing about free trade versus protectionism. So what is free trade? Hairu, Fatu, very nice. Good for you. Please send me an email. I'd love to get your testimonial. Okay, congratulations on your score. So David says to do commerce without barriers. Okay, yeah. Joseph says no import and export tariffs. Yeah, Sandeep says no tariffs or taxes. Yeah, very good. So no import, export, tax. Right. Okay. And what is protectionism? Okay. So what is protectionism? What does that mean? Okay. Again, if you didn't understand this, then what you need to do is you need to look at the transcripts, listen for the audio again, before you even go and answer all the questions, okay? So what does protectionism mean? Obviously, it means taxes, so import taxes, but why? Okay, so here, of course, if you can figure out that free trade means no import or export tax, especially the import part, and protectionism means that there's some import taxes, then why? So why do they do that? Joseph says taxes on import-export, but not for domestic. Yeah, okay, so Sandeep says to protect the domestic industry. Okay. So, students, if you got this information, you are doing well, okay? And you should be able to get a good score on your listening, all right? So my tip here, everyone, is that when you're practicing for the IELTS listening section, it's good to practice some tips and strategies like listening for keywords and paraphrasing and listening for paraphrased keywords. But at the end of the day, especially for part 2, 3, and 4, you have to have a general understanding about the discussion or the presentation in order to get a good score. If you don't have that, you have to stop, listen again, and read the transcripts at the back of the book to get a clear idea. Okay, does everybody understand that? So that's a very important tip, all right? If you are having difficulty regularly understanding the discussion of part 3 and 4, then you need to take more time to study your general English and to do more listening, okay? So this is a tip here. It's good to study specific strategies like listening for keywords, and I'll show you an interesting one in a minute, listening for keywords. But at the end of the day, you must have a clear understanding of the general topics of discussion in parts 2, 3, and 4 to get a band 6.5 or more on this section. If you are having difficulty, you must listen again when practicing and read transcripts. Okay? So there's not a lot of point in answering a lot of questions if you can't understand the main topics. Okay? So keep that in mind. Okay? All right, so now let's answer these questions. So here, the question was, how long ago was the first record of trade between nations? Okay, and we have something years. So here it's clearly a number. And this one's still fairly easy. And I saw a lot of students there giving it the answer at the beginning there. And you said 3,000 years. Yeah, 3,000 was good. Okay, so 3,000 years ago, that's the correct answer. So it's 3,000 years ago between Romans and Egyptians, the first record of trade. Now this is, of course, officially trading, right? Like with customs and customs officers, Egyptian customs officers and Roman custom. No, I don't know about that. I'm just kidding. But yeah, official trade. Okay, so then we had this flow chart. Okay, and in the flow chart, here is where you could listen for some specific information to identify where you are in the audio, all right? So there was actually a fair bit of discussion before we got to the answers here. And what I was listening for, paying special attention to, is this 20% higher, okay? So I knew that the speaker would eventually say this because there's no way to get around that number. Okay, so by listening to this specific number, I was able to locate the position of the audio. Okay, so use these kinds of numbers or names like country A and country B as markers, as identifiers. Okay, is that clear? Everybody picking that up? So you can use specific numbers and specific names to identify it. You cannot use words like products, okay? Because products will not work. They might say something else like goods, okay? So if you're listening for product or listening for produces, produces could be manufacturers. Okay, so common nouns cannot be used to identify your position because they're going to paraphrase those. All right, Mohammed, Surya, Carolina, Nikhil, Andre, I see that you're giving me thumbs up, right? So common nouns are not good to identify your location because they'll paraphrase them. Specific nouns like names or numbers are usually good to identify. Okay, so that's what I mean by some kind of specific strategies. Okay, so here we go. Let me just write that down for everyone real quick, and then we'll go to these next questions. Okay. So here's another tip. Use specific nouns and numbers as markers to identify your or the location in the audio. Okay. Do not use common nouns, as these will often be paraphrased in the audio and you will lose your position. And then when you lose your position, all kinds of trouble happens. You can miss a lot of marks, okay? Now, it's not the end of the world. Logic can still help you, but ideally, you are keeping the right place in the audio. Okay. All right. So a company in country A imports the product if the country does not have a free trade agreement, the company must pay a tariff. Very good, Nadia. It is a tariff. Tariff. It's like a tax, right? This is to level the playing field for what's 23? Small t. It's common noun. Tariff. Okay. Thanks, Sajal. All right. So 23, why are they paying those tariffs? Who are we leveling the playing field for? I can figure out that because of this preposition, this is going to be some kind of a noun. Now, here, I have to pay attention. It's no more than 2 words. So some of these are going to be 2 words. Joseph says it's domestic manufacturers. Yeah, that's what we said, right? Protectionism protects the domestic industry. So domestic manufacturers. It's a long one. Okay, so domestic manufacturers, right? The local producers, all right? They say this word twice, or this collocation. They say it twice, so you can catch it, okay? All right. So tariff, domestic manufacturers. Okay, here we go, everyone. Number 24. Now, always read through the flowchart. So if the countries do have a free trade agreement, the company does not have to pay to import the item. Some advocates of protectionism believe free trade advocates are only worried about maximizing something for large corporations. 24, I see a lot of you answering profit. That's great. Okay, Balkar, Shaylee, yeah. So profit, maximizing profit for large companies. Very good. Just be careful about your spelling, okay? Profit or profits is okay as well. If you put S, sometimes if you get the wrong plural or singular, it'll be wrong. But in this case, profit or profits, both are acceptable. Okay? I believe they actually say both. Okay, so here we go with 25 and 26, still in the first half. This is the other professor speaking here. So write no more than 3 words. Now this is 25, so for 25 you need 2 words, okay? Careful, pay attention to these kinds of questions where it's one question and you have 1 word and then you have another word. All you do is you just write both words. If you really want to, you can put a comma, but you have to have the right order. So this has to be first, this has to be second. If you reverse it, it doesn't make sense, okay? So some people will lose their jobs under free trade agreements, but we must emphasize the needs of the many. Very good. So emphasize the needs of the many. and not be sidetracked by the needs of the few. So it's many, comma, few. Okay, so many and few. So if you have this box, if you're doing the paper-based exam, computer-based exam, it's simple because you just type the words into those spaces. Paper-based exam, you would have question 25, and then you could write many and few, like that. If you really want, you can put a comma in there, but as long as you have a space, it's okay as well. Okay? All right. Now, again, watch the paraphrasing. So instead of sidetracked, what word did they use? Little bonus question here. Let's see how many of you were really paying attention. The speaker actually didn't say the word sidetracked. They said another word. What was the word instead of sidetracked? Whoever tells me this gets a bonus point from me. It's nothing tangible, but you do get my super thumbs up of the day. So what word did that speaker use instead of the word sidetracked? It wasn't swerve. It wasn't sidelined, Mohammed and Joseph. It was something else. I'll even give you a hint. It started with a D. What was that word? It wasn't ignored. And by this, I will also teach you the definition of sidetracked. Not overlooked. That's right, Joseph. You got it by my tip. Boom, thumbs up. Very good. Distracted. Yeah. Okay. To sidetrack or to be distracted are synonyms. Okay. So distracted. He said, we must not be distracted by the needs of the few and ignore the needs of the many. Okay, so he also reversed the grammar. So you have to be careful with paraphrasing and grammar. Okay, then we had the second half of the audio, questions 27 to 30. So here, write no more than one word. So it's just one word, okay? And it's a table, and you have the cause, enter into free trade agreements, effect, jeopardize human rights standards. Cause, sweatshops collapse. 27, the conditions are highlighted in the what? Deep, that's great. Yeah, we have our course on Udemy. It's a smaller version of our course than on our website, but that's great, Deep. Make sure to study. Okay, Shaylee, very good. Media. Yeah, 27 is media. Media. So highlighted in the news, in the magazines, it's media. Okay. And then the realization that such incidents are not isolated. Okay, the effect, implore companies and something to raise the bar. All right. Thank you. Somebody said we forgot to mention 26. If you miss a question, definitely if you catch it, go back. So here we go. Let's go back to 26 then and answer that together. Good. A lot of you are paying attention. Very nice. We'll go back to the last one after. I see that some of you have the right answers, so we can answer that quickly now. 26. Yeah, don't miss questions, okay? It's a good tip. Free trade lowers the price of many goods because it increases, Shaylee says, competition. Yeah. Now, this is a good question here to look at, because the answer is logical. So it's important to know that in the IELTS, even if you miss a question, if you didn't hear the audio, if you think critically, right? So why is free trade beneficial? Well, it increases competition, right? So if my neighbor is selling a chocolate bar for $1, and I'm selling mine for $2, then either my chocolate bar has to taste better, it has to be bigger, or I'm going to be in trouble, right? So there's competition because of free trade, okay? So logic can help you a lot, okay? All right, good. Very good. So even if you miss a question, if you don't hear it, go back, look at it, think carefully, and you can still come up with competition as the correct answer, okay? Shaylee says, I miss chocolate. Yeah, we all, well, not everyone, but most people like chocolate, including myself. All right, so here, implore companies, and I saw a lot of you give the right answer. It's governments, okay? And here the S is very important because it's companies, plural, okay? So governments has to be plural. If you just write government, you'll get it wrong. No S, you will not pick up the mark for that question, okay? So it has to be governments. Winder, the best way to answer multiple choice questions is to listen for the answer, okay? And we're coming up on these multiple choice questions now. So here's 29 and 30. And this is a very popular question from students is, how do I answer multiple choice questions well with getting them correct? Okay, there's 2 tips. Okay, so what is Dr. Young's main point in advocating for free trade? First, you have to paraphrase this when you're reviewing the questions. So Dr. Young's main point in arguing for free trade is, okay, so here's my tips for answering these multiple choice questions quickly and correctly. Okay? Here are a couple of really good tips for you. Okay? Tips for answering multiple choice questions accurately. Okay? Number 1, paraphrase the question as a statement. Okay? For example, the main point argued by the professor in favor of free trade is, and then dot, 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 or dot, 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 dot. And then the second one is, rather than staring at the choices, hoping that one will pop out, listen for the answer. Okay. Especially when you have multiple choice questions where you have full sentences. Okay. If you're trying to stare at these sentences, I mean, each sentence here is like 15 words. And meanwhile, you're listening to this audio. If you're staring at these sentences, hoping that they're going to use the words economic driver or are not perfect, it's very unlikely that you will catch it, even if you are a native speaker, even if you're a trained native speaker. Okay? So what you have to do is you have to finish the statement. Okay, so I changed the question into a statement. The professor's main argument for free trade is, what is it? Okay, so let's finish the statement. What statement does the professor make? So, for example, and here all I'm going to do is just copy this over, because all I'm doing here is just finishing his idea. Okay, I'm listening for his idea and finishing it. If you don't catch it, well, it's a guessing game at that point. You got a 30% chance or 33% chance of getting the correct answer. Okay, so the main point argued by the professor in favor of free trade is that what? And he makes it quite clear. Okay, so what does he argue? Okay. I don't want to know the choice. I want to know what the professor says. Okay, so what does the professor actually say? Okay. In the professor's own words, what does he say? He says something very, very clearly, okay, and you should catch it. He says, well, free trade Yeah, okay, Fennel, good. So Fennel Jayesha, you're using your own words. Very good, Fennel. So he says something like, the main point argued by the professor in favor of free trade is that while it is not perfect, I can't remember the exact words, but I kind of, yeah, so Erkin says, while it's not perfect, it can be beneficial. Yeah. Very good. So yeah, so he says, while it's not perfect, it's the best we have to benefit everyone. Something like that. Okay, I can't remember it exactly either, and you don't need to. You just need to remember kind of the main idea of what his argument was. Then when you have this, okay, now you can match it up with the correct answers. So now you can match this up with the right answer. Okay, so if I go back here, free trade agreements are the biggest economic driver for making the world a better place. Free trade agreements are not perfect, but they are a good step towards increasing global welfare. Okay, that looks really close to what I heard him say, right? Vivek, not perfect, but still a positive step. Very good, Vivek. So B looks good, right? Yeah? B looks good? So B it is, right? So I choose B. And if I read C, I notice that, yeah, B is the closest one. Okay? So that's how you do multiple choice. Okay? If you're just looking at these or staring at these, it's not going to happen. Okay? It's not going to happen. All right? So you have to get the answer on your own, especially for these multiple choice questions that have long answers. Okay? So here's the other person, the other professor. What is Dr. Sturgeon's main point in advocating for protectionism? So here I change this to the other professor's main argument for protectionism is, and then I remember what he says, is that it works better than free trade because it doesn't concentrate all of the money into a few people's hands. He says something like that, right? So it's it helps to, I can't remember the exact word, something like it's more fair for the general public. Yeah. Sandeep says the rich get richer while the poor get poorer. Exactly. Yeah. That's what he says. The rich get richer, the poor get poorer with free trade. So that's his argument for protectionism, right? Okay, and that one was C. So if you paid attention, that would be C. The rich get richer, the poor get poorer. Very good, Fennel. Good job. Okay, good job, Sandeep. Nicely done. All right. So let's do the last part. I've given you lots of tips, lots of strategies. Time to use them. Part 4 is challenging. It's a lecture, and we are gonna get right into it. So, fantastic, everyone. At the end, we'll add them all up. Mohammed got 7. 9 out of 10 is really good for part 3. Okay. So if you're getting anything over 7 or more for part 3, you're doing really well. Okay. All right. Let's get into part 4, everyone. So again, remember to share your answers at the end. For now, just write it into a separate document. If it's quiet for you, turn up the volume. If you're having difficulty seeing the screen, you need to increase your internet speed. I'm okay on my end. So here we go, everyone. All right. Again, this is coming from our website. So this is CD5 because it's exam 5. And this is going to be track 4. So here we go with the final part.
Now turn to section 4. Take some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Listening, section 4. You will hear a university lecture on the famous artist Michelangelo. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Good to see you all. As you know, we're having an exam a week from today. Material from today's class will be included on the exam, but material from the final 2 classes of the week will not be included. I hope this will give you an opportunity to revise enough to perform well on the exam. With that administrative business out of the way, I'd like to begin today's lecture on the lesser-known works and endeavors of the famous Italian Renaissance artist Michelangelo. While Michelangelo is best known for his painting of the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, he was also the creator of a number of other highly respected works. Among these are the Pieta, a statue of Mary holding a deceased Jesus, and the statue David, said to be the representative of the perfect male form. But Michelangelo was not just a painter and a sculptor. One of his crowning achievements is St. Peter's Basilica, a project he was lead architect on for the 17 years preceding his death in 1564. While the basilica wasn't completed until 1626, over 60 years after his death, Michelangelo's influence on the structure was immense, as he had laid out many plans for the structure during his lifetime, many of which were faithfully carried out under the reign of future popes and future architects. Michelangelo's fingerprints are all over modern Rome, and especially what is today Vatican City. Not only through his paintings, frescoes, and sculptures, but also through his architectural achievements. In addition to his influence on St. Peter's Basilica, Michelangelo also redesigned the famous Capitoline Hill area of Rome and designed many chapels within the walls of the Vatican. Michelangelo was also tasked with a number of pet projects over the years. These projects were not one that the man himself wanted to undertake, but was compelled to because of monetary considerations or simply loyalty to the Pope. For example, when Pope Julius II ordered him to construct a 3 times life-size bronze statue of the Pope, Michelangelo had no choice but to accept. The project took up more than 2 years of his life, and 4 years after its completion, the work was unceremoniously melted down to construct cannons. Additionally, the conditions under which he was made to work were often sorely substandard. For years, he lived and worked with 4 other men in a cramped apartment with little to no privacy and no room for his creative juices to flourish. It is interesting to imagine what a genius such as Michelangelo could have accomplished given reign over his own creativity. I personally believe the world is a poor place for him having not been allowed this luxury. However, on the other hand, perhaps Michelangelo's sometimes tortured life imbued his works of art with something more than just artistic genius. Although Michelangelo is a celebrated figure for his works of art and well respected for his architectural acumen, his literary works are virtually unknown to the world. He was a virtuoso of Renaissance art, celebrated in his lifetime and venerated centuries after his death, but his writings never made an impact on the society in which he lived, nor in the years since. Michelangelo was an avid writer of poetry and found that poetry was an invaluable escape from the grind of his everyday work life, especially during the years spent arduously painting the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. Poetry provided an outlet for his frustrations, fears, beliefs, and desires. Those who want to know the real Michelangelo must go beyond his frescoes and sculptures and dig deep into his personal writings. There, one will find a rather tortured soul, harmed by years of physical, political, professional, and personal strife.
That is the end of section 4. You will now have half a minute to check your answers.
All right, so you should check your answers in that half minute, because then you'll have 10 minutes to transfer your answer sheets, your answers to the answer sheets in the paper-based exam. You have a few minutes to look over your questions in the computer-based exam. So here we go, students. All right, let's do this. Part 4 moves quite quickly. You really have to follow along. First one, you have to decide if it's on the exam or not on the exam. Number 31, material from the 3rd class of the week. It's on the exam or not on the exam. Is it A or is it B for number 1? 31 is B. The final 2 classes of this week will not be. it's B. Okay. Number 32. Material from the current class. So from this class, she says this one really clearly, so you should get that one. It was kind of a gimme. She says the material from this class will be on the exam. So that's A. So it was B and A. And then she got into talking about the famous Renaissance artist Michelangelo in Italy. Okay. Here we go. So the life of Michelangelo, summarized by this professor. Now, you have to read along and follow carefully, use your logic. Yes. Part 4, you have to be fast. It's looking for Band 8, Band 9 candidates, okay? So while Michelangelo is perhaps most famous for painting the Sistine Chapel, he is also famous for a number of other highly respected works, including the Pieta and the statue named something thought to symbolize male beauty. Correct answer, Carolina. Good job, Alex. Mohammed, well done. It's David, big D. It's a name. If you write a small d, you'll get it wrong, David. Okay, very good. Architectural achievements. So buildings, building design. Far more than just a painter, Michelangelo was also an architect. He was lead architect on St. Peter's Basilica for something until his death in 1564. So it was a number of years here. So he was the lead architect. 17 years, not 17th. Okay, that would be wrong. Just 17 years. Okay, be very, very careful. Okay, if you write 17th, it would be incorrect. So 17 years. All right. Though the structure was not completed until 60 years after his death. If anybody's been to the St. Peter's Basilica, you can see why. His fingerprints are all over the resulting structure because future something and something faithfully carried out his designs. Future what and what? It was, hopefully, many of you got it. This is again 2 words separated by a comma, popes. Okay, and not pops. Okay, that would be different. You need an E here. Popes and architects. Now, if you don't know how to write the word popes, be very careful. You have it later as well. So here, he was also a loyal servant of the Pope. And oh, look at this. They use a capital letter for Pope. So good. Okay, so I know that I need to make this a big P, and then I have the accurate spelling. Okay, so if it's given, make sure to check it out. Okay, use what's given to help you with the answers. All right, here we go. Servant of the papacy. He was also a loyal servant of the Pope. Sometimes this was important work, though sometimes it was rather pointless. He once built a something of the Pope only to see it melted down for cannon parts just a few years later. How terrible. Just imagine how much that statue might be worth today. Okay. What did he build? I kind of gave you the answer there a second ago. King in the north, okay. A bronze statue is correct. So bronze statue. Yeah, bronze statue. Bronze is a type of alloy, okay. All right, I missed 36. Oh, what happened there? Okay, let's go back to it. Michelangelo's influence is also apparent around the rest of the city of what? Including at the ancient Capitoline Hill site. So here, number 36 is Rome. Okay. Vatican City is in the heart of Rome. Okay. That's the seat of the Christian church. It's the Vatican City in the heart of Rome. But Michelangelo's works, you can see them all around Rome, so not just in Vatican City. And this was a little bit tricky, but again, use logic, even if you missed it, if you're not sure, okay? Because the lecturer, the professor, talks about the works of Michelangelo, not just in the Vatican City, but also Capitoline Hill and other places around Rome. So it's Rome. Okay, Rome. Okay, it's not the empire of Rome, it's the city of Rome. Okay, Michelangelo lived in the 16th century. By that time, the Roman Empire had fallen. Okay, there was no more Roman Empire. Okay, it was just the city of Rome. Some basic ancient human history knowledge is definitely helpful in the IELTS, okay? All right. So he once built a bronze statue of the Pope only to see it melted down for cannon parts just a few years later. Moreover, the something he had to work in were often substandard, often being forced to live and work in small, cramped places with a number of other men. Fennell says it's conditions. Hi, Muhammadicio, back at you. Muhammad Izzat agrees, Shaley agrees, and conditions is correct. Plural is good here, so conditions. Very good, with an S. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, conditions, good job. Okay, last couple questions. Some interesting facts about Michelangelo. Literary works. It is interesting to think what he could have made if he was given the freedom to explore his own something. While his life may have been difficult, some people argue that this difficulty made him a better artist. Carolina, very good. Creativity. Fennel, good. Yarabisha, very good. Creativity. 1E, Yarabisha. Careful with your typing or spelling. Okay, so creativity. Yeah. Fantastic. Okay, and number 40, some kind of a subject noun here, was an important way to escape the difficulties of Michelangelo's life. Though his writings never made much of an artistic impact, they do offer a window into his tortured genius. Roger Alvarez says his poetry. Now, to be on the safe side, I would write that with a big P, just because it's the first word in the sentence. And IELTS is very picky. Okay, so try to be accurate. Poetry. Even though it's a common noun, it's the first word of this sentence, so poetry. Cool. Well done, everybody. Give yourselves a pat on the back for staying on board, concentrating all the way through, providing lots of great answers. Here we go. Yeah, Raghavinder Gode. Yes, you can answer all capital letters, but do that when you're transferring the answers to the answer sheet. So now my question is, how many did you get correct out of 40? Okay, what were your correct scores? For those of you that were in class yesterday and today, add up your marks for the whole listening section, and we'll check your band score. Okay, I'll show you on our website where we can do this. So let's hop over to the website here. I'm just going to darken up our screen here a little bit so you can see this. Okay. Mohammed, I see that 29 out of 40. So at the bottom of the websites, you have lots of information, but you have this score calculator. Okay, so that score calculator that I just clicked on, that's in your general IELTS and in your academic IELTS help web portals. And then you see here, it's the listening out of 40. Okay, so Mohammed Azad says 29. 29 out of 40 is a 6.5. Okay, if you got 35, I see a 35 up there. A 35 is a band 8. Okay. All right, and I see a 34. Not sure about that. 34 is a 7.5. So clearly 34, 35, that's a cutoff. So those of you who got 35, you just got a band 8. Okay, you just got a band 8. So 34 is 7.5. 35 is 8. Okay. Dhruvi. 38. It's an 8.5. Okay, 39 and 40 are band 9. Okay. All right. If you got 40 out of 40, that's definitely a band 9. Band 9 starts at 39. So if you make one mistake, you get 9. If you have all correct, it's a band 9. Okay. All right, students. So that's where you can check your scores. Also, right now, for our websites, you can join our premium package, which is lifetime access. They have a very friendly price for that, for the videos, practice exams, interactive course for your mobile or your desktop. And you can use the code CYBERDAY to get a 40% discount at ahelp.com or gieltshelp.com. That's the best deal of the year that we have. We have this Black Friday, Cyber Monday deal going for this kind of first 10 days of December, end of November. So it's a good time to use it, and it's lifetime access, and you get lots and lots of videos, practice exams, and lots more help. So check it out. If you have questions, let me know. Tomorrow I will be back with task 1 for the academic IELTS and some reading practice. You're very welcome, Yarabisha. Nice to see you in the class. Yarabisha, make sure to join the members chat classes too a little bit earlier if you can. Okay? All right, Shaylee, I'm happy you're being active. That's good. Keep it up. Goodbye, Kratika. Goodbye, Bishal. Goodbye, everyone. Much love to all of you. Keep up the good work. Stay strong. Stay healthy. And I will be back tomorrow. Bye for now, everyone.